Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with another top list. Yes, indeed. Today we're here with the top 5 worst monsters. Yes, indeed. We're counting down the terrible, terrible top 5 worst ever, horrible, no good, really, really bad monsters. So for the most part, Total War Warhammer has lots of really, really cool monsters that are awesome additions to the game. All of them are very cool. Some of them just struggle a bit in multiplayer, and today we're going to be looking at them. Starting, of course, with the Steam Tank, and yes, I would indeed call this a monster, although it says War Machine in the tag here. It's a single entity, it's an artillery piece, causes fear and terror. For all intents and purposes, it is a monster. So we'll kind of soak up some cinematics as we talk about what makes the Steam Tank so awful. Well, first things first, I'm actually going to pull up the stat cards here just briefly. 10 melee defense. A pitiful, horrible, just abysmal 10 melee defense. Just for comparison, Clan Rats, much better melee defense. I think there's even some Skaven slaves here somewhere, if we can find them. I'm not sure. We can compare their stats afterwards. But, yeah. Rest assured that that melee defense is about as poor as, like, say, zombies, which is abysmal. It's so bad. I can't emphasize how atrocious 10 melee defense is. It's just horrible. Next up, the Steam Tank's weapon strength is only 180, compared to other monsters in its weight class that punch at 300 weapon strength or more. Again, absolutely abysmal. It does have a missile attack that does quite a bit of damage, but unlike something like, say, the Stegodon, it doesn't do poison. Decent range. It is unbreakable, which is nice, at 160 armor, but that 10 melee defense doesn't really matter. You can see these Steam Tanks are starting to take damage from Clan Rats here. This is just terrible. This Steam Tank's almost actually dead from this Warlord here on the Bonebreaker, and yeah, Steam Tanks, totally awful, and yet they're only number 5 on this list. Number 4, in fact, is this guy right here, the Rat Ogre Bonebreaker. The Bonebreaker is an odd one. It's a little bit strange. The Warlord is the only guy who can ride this. You can't bring a Bonebreaker plane, which I think would actually be a really cool addition personally, but yeah, he's only a mount for the Warlord, which means he has okay-ish stats. 58 attack and 55 defense is honestly not terrible. 54 charge bonus, and he does have Frenzy as well, which is not bad. 70 armor is not great, though, especially for a big monster like this. And the biggest reason why the Bonebreaker is not on this list is he doesn't cause terror. He's the only unit on this entire list that doesn't cause terror. Why does the Bonebreaker not cause terror? Okay, I understand maybe in tabletop the Bonebreaker didn't cause terror, but honestly, dude, look at this thing. It's terrifying. That thing's... Look at that. It's very, very scary. I would run away in terror if I saw that thing on the battlefield. So, the fact that he doesn't cause terror is the main reason that he's on this list. Other than that, the Bonebreaker Warlord's not terrible. Just the 70 armor and the big hitbox means he's a pretty big target. And for a faction that already struggles with getting shot at a lot, you know, Rat Ogres, the Hell Pit Abomination, things like that generally struggle with getting shot at already. Not the best choice, especially when you consider how many strong caster lords the Skaven have access to, where you can bring your caster and lord in one and save a little bit of value that way. The Bonebreaker, honestly, I probably could have traded him and the Steam Tank in terms of their positions on this list. So, you know what, let's go ahead and do that. Steam Tank is number 4, mostly because it actually causes terror. Warlord, number 5, because he's not that bad. The main reason he's on this list is, again, he doesn't cause terror. So, as fun as this is watching, we do have more to get to on the list. But let's soak up some more horribleness of the Steam Tanks dying to hordes and hordes of Clan Rats here, which, if you think about it, is just sad and terrible. Look at this. 2 Storm Vermin able to easily take down the Steam Tank. So, yeah, Steam Tanks are terrible. We'll put them at number 4, and number 5 is the Bonebreaker. So let's go ahead, and I am going to concede to the PC here. Sorry for the low production value, guys. I don't really have a ton of time to do a lot of editing on this, but hey, on that note, if you do want to help me improve the production value, mosey on over to my Patreon page. Will help me pay for editing software and also help me have more time to be able to put into editing and stuff like this. But anyway, moving on, we've gone over number 5 and number 4 already, so we're going straight to number 3, and for this one, who else but the Wood Elves? Yes, indeed, And is it the Tree Man? No, actually, I kind of like the Tree Man. He actually has pretty good armor. It's the Eagle. You know what? I lied. I said the Bonebreaker was the only one on this list that doesn't cause terror. The Eagle also doesn't cause terror. So let's just go with the massive Eagle spam here and load in and watch them beat up some Skaven while we talk about how awful they are. So what makes the Eagles so awful? Well, they have low armor, for one, so they're pretty squishy. They don't have the best melee defense. It's okay, but it's not amazing. It's better than the Steam Tanks, obviously, but I'm never going to let that go. But, yeah, they have low armor, low-ish melee defense, only 30. They also don't do armor piercing, only 390 weapon strength, which, again, is better than the Steam Tanks. 150 armor piercing total is not bad, but again, not an armor piercing focus. They do have a 62 charge bonus, but again, no fear, no terror. For how expensive they are, you would expect them to do a little bit more here, so let's watch the mass Eagle charge down into these Storm Vermin here. And while the charge looks mighty impressive, these Eagles are honestly probably going to start suffering here. Well, I don't know, actually. They're doing some pretty good damage to that Warlord, all things considered, but yeah, Eagles, just a little squishy. They are useful for certain things, but again, no terror, no armor piercing. The charge bonus is okay. Their low armor and low melee defense, though, makes them pretty squishy monsters overall. They can be useful in certain situations, but when you compare them to other monsters on both the Wood Elves and the High Elves roster, they just are really underwhelming, both as a mount choice and as monsters that you can bring individually. In particular, for the mount choices, like, I don't know why you would ever take a Noble, even in campaign, on a Great Eagle, considering that he loses his armor piercing and anti-large, for not that much gain. I mean, yes, he's up in the air. He's still only about as fast as he would be on a horse, though. And again, losing that anti-large AP is just massive. So yeah, Eagles, definitely not the best. They'll do okay, apparently, at setting in a giant blob of Skaven, but you can see already quite a few of them starting to take some damage because of that low health. Or sorry, not low health. They do have relatively low health, only about, 3,000, maybe about 3,200 total. But yeah, the low melee defense and low armor means that they will take a lot of damage. So, unfortunately, the Eagles, although, they did save Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings, they don't really have that much of a place in Total War Warhammer multiplayer, at least not in my opinion. Again, feel free to disagree in the comments down below. I strongly encourage you guys to do so if you don't agree with any of these items here. But again, this is my list. So, yeah, going to the next one then. Let's go ahead and back out of this ridiculous bird fest and go to the next one. Who could it be? I'm not even sure who to pick for this one, because this next monster comes in not one, not two, not three, but 4 full varieties. Yes, indeed, I'm talking about the dumb giant. The slow, plodding, ridiculous, silly giant. So let's grab a giant spam, and I guess I do need a lord here, so we'll grab the little Gobbo Warboss. And just for kicks and giggles, just as a quick reminder, Greenskins have access to these guys, Chaos has access to these guys, Norska has access to these guys, as do the Beastmen. So 4 different factions, 4 different variations of terrible. Let's go ahead and take a look at what makes them so bad. And again, they are number 2 on this list, so that's pretty bad. The main issue for Giants is that they have a massive hitbox for missiles. They're very large units just in terms of their actual size. They're also very slow at 36 speed. This is slower than a lot of units of infantry, which is just appalling. It's just so bad. It's... I mean, it's going to take them forever to march across, so we're going to actually fast forward and just look at how slow these guys are. They're slower than all of these Skaven infantry. Well, at least not while they have their, strength and numbers up, but for their baseline speed, they're going to be slower, and they're slower than a lot of infantry. They're so slow, and the fact that they're so weak to missiles and they're so slow means that they're very easy to take down from a distance, especially if your opponent has like skirmish cav. It's pretty much GG for these guys. Even against factions that can't bring a lot of skirmish, like say the vampires. The low armor and low melee defense, again, only 30 melee defense on these guys, means that they'll take a lot of damage even from low tier like units. Like you can see these clan rats are already starting to poke away at them. The storm vermin, of course, with their 34 weapon strength will do okay, and the plague monks might do even better, but looks like that warlord unfortunately already got routed off by the giants, which goes to show the bonebreaker is pretty terrible. But yeah, again, 30 melee defense, 30 armor. They do have nice armor-piercing weapon strength, and at least they cause fear and terror. But the fact that they're so slow and they're so squishy means that they're going to be really hard to pay off against most factions. So, unfortunately, the giants, very cool as they are, and it just goes to show how awesome Warhammer is, that something like a giant can be considered a poor monster. But there you go. Terrible, terrible giants. And yeah, I do briefly want to touch on the Beastmen version, as it is slightly different than the other versions. The Beastmen variation of the giant actually has the no forest penalty rule, as do most Beastmen monstrous units, so it won't suffer the same penalties that these boys would, for example, fighting in the forest. That makes it marginally more useful. You can stick it in the forest, it won't suffer penalties, and it'll be somewhat protected from missiles, although you still have the problem of it being really slow and squishy in melee. I mean, obviously their melee hitbox isn't nearly as big. They have a relatively low profile in that way. Their missile hitbox is absolutely massive. It's very easy for a low accuracy unit, even something like Ungor Raiders or Goblin Archers or something like that, to connect on like 90% of their shots, because this thing is so big, and it will of course do a ton of damage because they're so squishy. So there it is, number 2 giant. And I guess you would have a caveat again that the Beastman version of the giant might be slightly more useful, but still probably not worthwhile in most situations. I'll just briefly show you guys the Beastman boy here. He does have this no forest penalty special rule, so he won't have penalties from being in the forest, which is definitely a benefit, especially for a squishy guy like him. Now, what could be the last one? I bet some of you have guessed by now. It's the Manticore, the sad Manticore. So let's have a look at what makes this guy so terrible. Well, first things first, you have the Feral Manticore, which, being a feral monster, has the Rampage rule. Now, I didn't include units like the Feral Bastildon or the Feral Stegodon, even though I think they're trash. The feral units in general are just the fact that they enrage makes them almost unusable. However, the other variations of those monsters, even the Mammoth to a degree, are somewhat useful. The Mammoth almost made this list, but it's got enough going for it that I didn't include it. The Manticore, though, even the other versions of it are terrible, so yeah, the fact that the Feral Manticore has Enrage definitely counts against it. Only 45 armor, 34 melee defense, as we've said before, very squishy. It does cause fear and terror, at the very least, but again, non-armor piercing weapon strength, only 155 armor piercing, and it's also only 85 speed, which means it's slower than a Pegasus or other, similarly classed flying unit. So yeah, they're slow-ish. They don't have AP, they have poor melee defense, poor armor, and they rampage. There's really nothing going for the poor Manticore boys. In fact, let's go ahead and even put some dudes up on Manticores, just to make this next bit extra fun. We do need one unit on the ground, so we'll grab a random Marauder here, and then just spam out some more Feral Manticores. You can summon Feral Manticores with the Lore of Beasts. That doesn't make them good. It just makes them cheaper, I guess, but you're still wasting your Winds of Magic, in my opinion, on spells that would be much more useful than a silly Manticore enraging off into some spheres somewhere. So yeah, even Manticores as mounts, again, they don't have the AP of other flying units. They're slower than something like a Pegasus. In fact, after we watch these guys for a little bit, tear up some of these Skaven, we'll go in and actually compare like a Chaos Champion on a a horse versus on a Manticore, because I think you'll be surprised at how similar they are. So the Manticores, again, they do cause terror, and that's probably their #1 redeeming trait, but other than that, Manticores are just, they're overpriced, and they're terrible. They're like eagles that cause terror, but they also rampage, and they don't really give you any benefit for being more expensive. The rampage counteracts the terror, in my opinion. You can see already this one feral Manticore losing its health and already enraged. He's getting beat up by the warlord there on the Bonebreaker. So yeah, poor Manticores, just absolutely awful in every way, except for the terror. I guess that is nice. But again, your opponent can always just do a load of damage to them, and then they'll be enraged, at least the feral Manticores. Now, the characters on the Manticores, if we have a look at these guys, Chaos Lord on the Manticore, only 45 melee defense. It does put him at 80 armor, but still, a dragon would be much, much better. It has armor piercing in melee, it has the breath attack, just overall going to be a better mount. This guy, again, only 85 speed, so he's going to be slower than something like a Pegasus, and it doesn't give you the armor piercing of some of the other monsters like griffins or, you know, other like monsters. So yeah, poor Manticores, not as good as dragons, not as good as griffins, I'd argue not as good as Pegasi. They're awful, guys. They're just awful. Look at him. He's kind of cute, but terrible. So, hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. Super quick and dirty top 5 list. Again, don't really have a lot of time because of my day job to record and edit these. I would love to do top 5 lists, or bottom 5 lists in this case, with more production value. Unfortunately, as it is right now, I just don't have time, especially because this time of the year is by far the most busy for my day job. It does mean that I have very little time to play battles, record, and even less time to edit. I'm kind of a noob at editing. I've done a little bit here and there, but I don't have any like licensing for any editing software, for example, and obviously I'm not going to go out and pirate something like that. I want to do everything legitimately, so that does cost money, and it also costs a lot of time in learning how to edit, actually getting all the different shots, editing them together requires a lot more planning in terms of like what shots I'm going to get, storyboarding, that sort of thing. So just overall, to increase the production value of something like this would take me a lot more time. And unlike some of the others, like I know Turin does this pretty much full time for the most part. Unfortunately, with my day job, I just don't have time to do something like that. So this is where Patreon and you guys come in. Haven't really talked much about my Patreon before, just because I'm not super comfortable asking people for money, because it's not like I need the money. I mean, I have a very good day job, does a perfect job of covering all my bills and everything, but I want to do this full-time. I want to do YouTube full-time. I would love to be able to increase the production value of this, make videos like this great, and be able to really, you know, take it to the next level, so to speak. To be able to do that, though, you know, time's money, and I either trade my time for money at my day job, or else I have more time to work on my channel. You know, there's only so many hours in a day, right? So I don't want to talk too much about this kind of at the end of this video. Kind of transitioned into a weird place. But anyway, if you guys want to support the channel, if you want to help me increase the production values of videos like this, feel free to mosey on down to my Patreon. $1 a month is more than you watching like 1,000 of my videos, seriously. So it goes a long way. Even if you can't afford a lot, you know, anything helps. And if you can't afford to support me on Patreon, I totally understand. You know, no hard feelings whatsoever. The best thing you can do is just continue to watch the videos, like, comment, share with your friends, of course subscribe if you haven't already. But I do appreciate all your guys' support, and I have to say, I've been doing this for about a year now, and the channel has grown a lot faster than I expected. A big thanks to all of you guys for being here, supporting me through all of it. It's been an awesome, awesome ride so far, and we'll keep things going nonetheless. But anyway, just to round things out, I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah. Top 5 worst monsters, Manticore is definitely the worst. How would I fix him? Just give him armor piercing. That's all you gotta do. The feral thing, I get that. You know what? All feral creatures in the game enrage. It sucks, makes them significantly less useful, and I wish that they would remove it for certain ones, like the feral Manticore, for example, especially the summoned feral Manticore. But all that's secondary. If you just gave the Manticore armor piercing, it'd be fine. That would be totally fine. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. I already did the bit about subscribing and all that jazz, so I'm not going to do that here, but thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.